Hey, what's up, Big Ten fans? Michael Dugan here from internsbig10.com. We got week 8 predictions coming at you right now. Let's get these easy ones out of the way. Northwestern is going to beat Rutgers. Penn State is going to beat Indiana. Both those teams are going to pick up road wins. Wisconsin is going to beat Illinois. We've got those out of the way. Now, there are some big-time Big Ten games this weekend, so let's dive right into it. Michigan State at noon. I love this noon kickoff. We get going right away on Saturday. Michigan is a touchdown favorite, and I think they win by a touchdown. Again, I don't know how Michigan State pulled it off last weekend in Happy Valley. Brian Lewerke with a lower than 50% completion percentage. He's not that great of a quarterback. Michigan's gotten tremendous pressure on opponents' quarterbacks. Granted, opponents probably don't have the same offensive line that Michigan has had this year, or Michigan State has this year, with the exception of Notre Dame, which Michigan obviously lost that game. I think this could be a touchdown game. I think Michigan State's defense keeps them in it, but I think we're probably looking at like 20-14, 20-10, 17-10, something like that. And I don't think that's going to be a surprise to people. The over-under for this game is 41 points. But I have Michigan, but in a close one. Michigan State wins, I'm not surprised, but I think on paper, Michigan's just got the advantage at almost every position, even though it's really by a slim margin at each one. So the margin for error is, this could go either way. Maryland at Iowa. The over-under for this game is 45. Take the over in that if you're a betting man or woman. Maryland's figuring out how to put points on the board without a competent quarterback in Kasim Hill. Ty Johnson is regularly cranking out 10-yard per carry games on 10 to 11 carries and a touchdown or two. He can literally go coast to coast on any given play. He's so hard to bring down. He's so hard to catch. He's elusive, he's fast, and he's one of the most exciting players to watch in the Big Ten. He's a senior this year. If you haven't watched him play yet, you probably should. This game's on at noon on ESPN2. You can go back and forth between the battle of the Michigan teams and this one because Ty Johnson is a joy to watch play football. With that being said, I watched Iowa play last week, and I just don't think Maryland can match the physicality of Iowa. I think Nate Stanley's too big. That Maryland defense is not elite, not that great. I don't think that's a surprise to hear that. I just don't think they can get to Nate Stanley, and if he has time, as we saw last week, and as we saw against teams like Northern Illinois this year for Nate Stanley, not that great of opponents, but when he has time, he can make plays, and he's big, and he's tough to bring down if you get to him, as we saw last week. So I've got Iowa in this one. That's a crucial mistake right there. I have Iowa in this one. Pretty low scoring game. I don't think quite as low scoring as Michigan State. Minnesota, Nebraska. That is an interesting game to me. Nebraska's a 4-point favorite. Minnesota looked pretty good last week in Columbus. I still don't know what they are. We're almost 2/3 of the way through October. I don't know what Minnesota is as a football team. But from what I saw from Nebraska, this is a completely different team right now than they were 2 weeks ago. And they've got speed, and they're starting to figure out who their playmakers are, and more importantly, how they can set those playmakers up to make plays. And to me, that's really important in the Big Ten, especially when you're in the bottom of the Big Ten West. You're battling out against teams that don't have playmakers. Nebraska has playmakers. Minnesota, not so much. Illinois, not so much. Purdue has one. Northwestern doesn't even really have a playmaker, although Flynn Nagel has exceeded expectations. So with Nebraska, I think because they found a way to get their playmakers the ball, I think they win this game. They get their first win a little later than expected, but they get their first win. I think they row the boat over PJ Fleck and the Gophers. And if that happens, Charlie and I will have to dissect that on next week's show because the PJ Fleck experiment could turn very interesting if they somehow lose this game. And now the big one. Ohio State and Purdue. The line has actually moved in Purdue's favor since it opened. I believe it opened as 13.5 or 14. It's now down to 12.5 with an over-under of 68.5. There are going to be points in this game. I don't know who that favors. I actually don't think that that's a quality take and that's a quality narrative to say that if there are a lot of points, then that favors this team. So I don't buy into that narrative ever. But I do think that if these two defenses are just going to kind of take the day off and just exchange possessions, I think the Ohio State defense has more talent than Purdue's, and I don't think I'm going out on a limb by saying that. And those corners and those safeties that have struggled a bit the last couple of weeks will find a way to make a play down the stretch for Ohio State. I don't know if they'll need to, but it might get to that point. I think Purdue is going to hang with them punch for most of the way here. And depending on how that secondary for Ohio State gets down on themselves, if they get down on themselves, Purdue could win this football game. I'm warning you right now. I'm taking Ohio State, but by a touchdown, by a field goal. And I'll happily look like an idiot if they turn things around and roll Purdue. But I know there's concern in Columbus. I've read pieces from beat writers. I've seen tweets from fans. There's concern in Columbus about this football team. Now, granted, they're still one of the most talented teams in the country. They're the second best team in the country on paper to me. But in college football, anything can happen. And when you've got a unit that's a liability, and if they can't figure it out, that's going to crumble for Ohio State sooner or later. And Purdue is on an upward trajectory right now. So get Rondale Moore the ball. That the fact that Purdue's one playmaker is an elite playmaker on a national scale. This is the guy that would be making plays in Rondale Moore for almost any program right now in the entire country. In fact, I would argue he'd be making plays for any program right now. He's that good. He's that fast. He's a wide receiver. He's going to give that Ohio State secondary fits. He's going to catch balls in the slot. He's going to outrun them. He's going to go for these fake in routes and go deep and beat him. He's going to have a big game because you know they're going to give him the ball in a game like this. I think this is going to be an outstanding football game. I really do. And again, I'm confident in saying that. With that being said, I hope I don't look like an idiot if Ohio State turns it around because there are issues right now with this Buckeye team. That secondary, like I said, that defensive line is getting to quarterbacks and giving them absolute nightmares. Chase Young is a beast. But that secondary, and Purdue moves fast enough where that Ohio State front seven might get tired. They won't get drained, but they'll get a little tired. And you just keep getting the ball to Rondale Moore. He will make plays happen. And Purdue is going to stay in this football game for a little bit. But I'm going with the Buckeyes. All right, guys, thanks for tuning in. We have a fantastic week. Fantastic weekend of Big Ten football. I cannot wait to watch it all. And we will talk to you guys on Monday.